Should be.
It's not shown on mine.
I just went out and did a refresh. Oh, now I got a new countdown, 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
All right, it's showing live now.
There we go. Yep.
Okay. I believe we are live now, and just want to welcome everybody to the virtual town hall today. I think the first ever at Candlewood Lake, and I want to do a quick introduction of the people here that are taking part in the town hall. So going to my left first is Doug Potts. Doug's our. We got a delay on the. Okay, so Doug Potts is on my left, our general manager, and I think Doug is in day 49. Is that about right, Doug?
Correct.
Right now?
That is correct.
Daryl Young is opposite me. Daryl's also a board member and also is the board co-chair of our ECC committee and part of the voting work group. Chris Johnson is with us as well. Chris is a board member and also was on the voting work group. And Jim Reeder is here, one of our board members, and John McFarland. John's a member at large at Candlewood, but John also chairs our long-range planning committee, does a great job with that, and was also a member of the voting work group. So that's the introductions. Lori Parrish, I believe, is joining us here shortly, and she's heading our security committee. Just the quick review of the agenda that you can see hopefully online. We're going to talk about security strategy and plans going forward. That'll be Doug talking about that. I'll briefly review some of the legal and governance issues that are top of mind regarding lake security. And then finally, Chris and his team will talk about some of the findings and issues in the voting work group initiative. And then finally, the member Q&A, comments and questions and answers. And we're going to try to save more time for that. We'll try to get through our material as quickly as we can, but save a lot of time for member comments and questions. Before I turn it over to Doug, I just want to make a couple other quick comments. First of all, the purpose of town halls, and this one obviously is our very first virtual town hall. We wish right now that we were at Northmore in the cafetorium or in the gymnasium over there with 100 people in attendance, but we're not. We're going to do the very best we can today to accommodate all our members' questions and comments. But town halls are part of our culture, and it's a really something I put a lot of pride in. I know our members do as well. And if you think back, town halls have been general in nature, covering anything and everything. We've done them on finance topics. We've done them on dredging. We've done town halls and meetings on SWAT meetings. We've done town halls on security. So this one's primarily focused on security, both on and off the lake, as well as boating topics. So we're excited to bring it to you, but also proud that this is part of the Candlewood culture. Sometimes town halls are just general in nature, and other times there's hot potato topics. And today's one of those. There's some, quote unquote controversial topics, but I believe, and I know our board also believes, that you don't shy away from those things. You hit them head on. We talk about them. Everybody has a right to opinions. Everybody has a right to propose issues to the board. And one of the purposes of today is to get those things on the table and talk about those things. Today's also about much more than just a hot potato item. And the security plans going forward is top of mind, and I'll leave that to Doug. But we know we missed the mark in many ways on security, and we're going about correcting that. I can guarantee it, and Doug will talk about that. We're going to streamline a lot of our boating regulations. That's a big part of the work group effort, to make a much greater presentation of our boating regulations and something that can be used as a training and educational tool for our members. And then also, we'll be talking about working closer with our state and local officials to improve our security and member experiences. And just a couple of examples of that are work that we've actually done this year, working with county sheriffs on our road patrol and our security on our gates and our ramps, and utilizing the county sheriffs to assist with that. And then also working closer with the ODNR so that we know that our boating regulations are appropriate, and that we partner with ODNR to make sure we're keeping our members safe and doing the things that make sense for our community. So a lot more to it. Last point I'll make before I turn it over to Doug, I think is an important one, but how we go about resolving difficult issues really speaks to the strength of any organization, company, or certainly a community like Candlewood Lake. So as I mentioned before, if it's a hot button topic, how we go about that speaks volumes about our community. And I'm very confident that that's a strength of Candlewood, our willingness to work together towards common goals. We want to be open, we want to be transparent, and truly, particularly through these hot topics, we want to really work hard to truly listen to each other, to seek to understand each other's different points, and to get those out on the table. One thing we'll try to do, and it's true in business and it's true at an association, is let's look for common ground. And we'll be talking about that as we go forward here today. So we're going to take at least the hour and a half today, and we're going to work through our material to have plenty of time for our members to send in comments, and we'll address those that have already come in through the email today, prior to today, and as well as those that come in live throughout the rest of this morning. So with that, again, it's really a pleasure and an honor to be part of this today. And I'm going to turn it over to our new general manager, Doug Potts, to talk about security strategy and plans going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. I just wanted to publicly thank you for the transition. As you had indicated, I'm on my 49th day, and basically I've just sat back and looked at the organizational process analysis and clarification, and looking at moving forward with some different strategies on dealing with security. The first thing that we definitely want to talk about is the security leadership and staffing. Moving forward, we're going to add significant changes to the security staff in the very near future, with bringing on some new security members. Looking at the training is a critical part of security. We will be making some major changes in how we go about training our security staff, both on the roads and on the lake. That's something that Greg has indicated that we have missed the mark on doing so. And that's what we definitely have to do, is look at the training and the training needs of our security staff. Also, we are going to implement some strategies for lake security. I think it's vital that we have a presence on the lake and support our members on the lake in the process of enjoying our greatest natural resource, the lake. Also, we're going to be revising how we go about doing our boat permitting process. That is a very significant part of the process that will be starting in the spring, that we're going to try to implement some strategies, implementing technology to improve that process. Also, I think it's important that we understand the rules and regulations, and the individuals here at Candlewood Lake have to understand the importance of enforcing those rules and regulations. In the process of permitting the boats, we're going to have members sign off and allowing them to understand what our expectations are when they are on the lake. And the physical verification of all watercraft, that's been problematic, in which we've had individuals registering boats that should not be on our lake, and we've been very fortunate there has not been significant injuries on the lake. But we are going to go through a process of physically verifying all watercraft that will be on the lake. Also, in the area of security in the gates and roads and ramps, where Greg and I have met several times on upgrading our technology and implementing that in our budget process, in which we've currently been started. Looking at the lake patrol, I think it's vital that the presence on the lake is a must. We have to be out there to support our members in case there are problems, and just enforcing our rules and regulation, along with training. Lori, one of our board members, has done some lake patrol, and it's critical that we implement some of the Coast Guard training recommendations for water rescue, and having more members on the security team actually certified to be out on the lake patrol. The big thing is consistency. We have to be consistent in enforcing the rules and regulations for everybody, and everyone will realize that no one's above the law, that we're going to be consistent in our process of enforcing those rules. And I've always talked about public relations and interpersonal skills. I think it's critical that we go above our expectations and doing what is right. And also, we're going to be implementing some cameras at the boat ramps that will help us justify and verify those individuals that are out on our lake. Our last item of security, we have to do a better job on our presence, not only in Unit 4, but overall. And the common theme here on security is just training, consistency, having personnel in place to support our goals and objectives, and public relationships. The speeding issue will be addressed once the process of chip and seal is completed. We have ordered signs that we will place strategically in Candlewood that will verify the speed limits, and also we will be putting up some signs that have been missing. That should happen within the next 2 or 3 weeks. We have a lot of projects underway now, implementing the various strategies that I've been able to work with Greg and the board on moving forward. And I think we're going to see some changes that will impact our security on the lake and on our roads. Please, if you have any questions or any concerns, don't hesitate to give me a call. Stop in the office and talk to me. I just want to make sure that everyone realizes we have an open door policy, and if you have questions or concerns, please give me a call and we'll get back with you as soon as possible. My easiest contact information is on our website. I'll give you that information again. You can email me any concerns or questions at dougp@candlewoodlake.us, or give me a call directly on my cell phone at 419-571-4844. And my goal is to get back with you within an hour or as soon as I get the message. So please don't hesitate to let us know what we can do to better your experience here at Candlewood. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Chris. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Doug. A lot of good changes we're looking forward to coming up there, and your number is now out on social media, so beware. Okay, so again, my name is Chris Johnson, part of the board as well as part of the Lake and, I'm sorry,
Chris. Greg has one more slide.
So I'm sorry.
Not only is my number out on social media.
Yeah. No worries. Back to Greg.
No
Not
problem.
only.
Thank you, and I realized I didn't even introduce myself when this started. I was too busy introducing everybody else, but I'm Greg Atkins, and currently the board president here at Candlewood Lake. So the topic of this slide, and before I turn it over to Chris, is legal and governance issues, and I have no intentions of trying to talk like an attorney about all this, but what this is about really is when we started looking at lake security and enforcement, and particularly the hot topic of the wake boat issues, it became clear that we needed to understand Ohio law and how it applied and what our rights, responsibilities, and duty are, and really how we mesh with ODNR and that type of thing. So it's really as a board, it's really our fiduciary duty to do that. So as we weigh in on issues or make policy, that's our duty to the best of our ability to understand the issues that we're being asked to address and tackle. So what we did as a board is we had a session with two different attorneys, about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and the entire board was present in executive session, and we talked about that very thing, about Ohio law, about the ODNR responsibilities, and then even specifically about the things that we could and couldn't do, and that type of thing. We had our legal counsel, George Gherkin, was present, as well as John Jolly, who is the attorney for the Ohio Lake Community Association, of which we are a member, and both are very well versed in these issues. So we took a lot of information in, took a lot of notes, and processed that. The other thing we've done, and I had a conference call with the ODNR recently, and also a separate conference call, entirely different discussion, and covered many of the same topics, asked a lot of questions. And so these bullet points below are kind of key points, if you will, or from those two sessions. And I just wanted to go over those with you. And if they spark any questions, you can submit those online on the YouTube link. But the first one there is seeking a balance in complying with Ohio law and protecting our members. And that's kind of the reality. That was a big aha out of those meetings, that it's clear that next line kind of says it. The ODNR has the responsibility, the sole responsibility, to enforce state laws on Ohio inland lakes and impose criminal penalties on those lakes. So that's clear, but there's a balance there. So we have to follow Ohio law. We can't go off and do something that's exclusive purview of the ODNR, but we absolutely, and that's the third bullet point, we absolutely have the right and obligation to enforce our own rules, Candlewood rules, and protect the safety and welfare of our members. So that's the balancing act that first bullet point really describes, is how do we find the balance between complying with Ohio law and protecting our members. And I will just tell you, there's no single answer, there's no silver bullet. It's kind of threading a needle. We have to do both things. And as we were advised, there's some gray areas, as there is in all law, if you will, but that's what we have before us, is seeking that balance. I talked earlier about seeking common ground, and whether you're a company or whether you're in negotiation with somebody, that's one of the things you always try to do, is where can we find common ground? And one of the things that when it comes to wake boats and some of the issues on the lake right now, excessive wake, I believe, is one of those areas of common ground that we can find, and we can probably all agree on, that it's not healthy for the lake, it's not comfortable for our members, and excessive wake from all sources is something we can rally around and seek to try to do something to control or make it more tolerable, etc. I mentioned those two meetings that were had with both the two attorneys and ODNR. And it's interesting because we asked a lot of questions, took a lot of notes, and in some cases we asked the same questions, but one thing came back from both the ODNR and from those attorney discussions that was in common. They both said this in different ways with different words, but they both ended up saying that the best thing we can do is focus on the bad boating behavior and protecting our members. And the counter to that was, instead of focusing on limiting choices and taking away rights and those kinds of things, they said you'll be seen in a better light, both the ODNR and attorneys that are involved with this. You'll be seen in a better light if you're focusing on harmful behavior versus the other methods, and if you're also seen as trying to protect your members, be it their safety or welfare or their property, meaning the shoreline. So I thought that was kind of an aha moment in this whole thing. as common ground between both ODNR and people who are involved on the legal side of this. The other common element that we heard, and again, we heard this both from the attorneys and we heard it from the ODNR, is for Candlewood to strongly promote voting education, the sense of community, and our members doing the right thing. And if you think about it, what does that mean? Doug talked about education quite a bit, and that's just making sure our members understand not only what our rules are, but why they're important. Why is it important not to produce excessive wake and those kinds of things? Sense of community is just, I think 99% of our members want to do the right thing. And we just have to make sure they understand, are educated, and can make a linkage there. But I do believe that sense of community makes sense, and that most members want to do the right thing. And if it's, naturally there could be 1% of the people that are like, well, I'm going to do what I want to do. Those things can be handled on one-offs. And I think that's the way it is in life, if you think about it. Not everybody's going to walk to the same drummer. We're going to have issues on the lake, off the lake from people, and we deal with those on a case-by-case basis. But I do believe that sense of community, that promoting, the better boating education, have a much stronger boating security presence, all those things will inure to our benefit, inure to the members' benefit, and make Candlewood Lake a much safer and more enjoyable experience out there on the lake. And then last but not least, the ODNR special rules process. And we did talk to them about that. That is something that's available to any inland lake. And what that is where Candlewood Lake could actually petition to file special rules relative to our own circumstances at Candlewood Lake. And what they typically do, I'm not saying this is easy. In fact, it's a difficult process. There's no guarantees whatsoever. But what they typically will listen to and consider are things like speed limits, operating hours, horsepower limits, and boat lighting and lighting on your lake and things like that. But I specifically did ask the ODNR officers that I talked to, and there was 2 different people on the conference call. I did ask about, would it be off limits to talk about excessive wake as a generic term? And they absolutely said, no, it's not out of limits. There's no promises, there's no guarantees, but they described the process, and it involves us getting a presentation ready, a filing. I believe there's a public hearing aspect of it down the road, but they're ready, willing, and able to help us through this. And I think it's something that I know we all have a great deal of interest in, and it's something I think we should probably pursue, particularly with respect to excessive wake. So if anybody's ever watched the movie Shawshank Redemption, I've referred to this before, but Andy Dufresne was looking for money for his library, and he wrote so many letters to the state, they finally got tired of him and sent him like $500 to make him be quiet. And I'm kind of looking at it this way. If we're just persistent, we know this is something that'll help our members, and on behalf of our members, if we just stay persistent, stay focused, do a really, really good job, I'm just unwilling to give in to the fact that this is hard, it's difficult. We know that. But I think this is something we could do. And I've talked to other members like Daryl and Chris and others that, they're shaking their heads because I think we're on the same page on this, that it's something that could help Candlewood. And I think we can make a good case for this and for other areas as well. So that's kind of the legal aspect of this. There's a whole lot more to it, but I don't want to cut in too much into Chris's time or the members' time, so I'll turn it back over to Chris at this point in time. Thanks.
Excellent. Very good. Appreciate it, Greg. A lot of good points there. All right. So again, Chris Johnson, part of the board, as well as a member of the Boating and Lake Work Group. And we can go ahead and advance to the next chart. And so just real quickly, the work group was formed. This was back in, I think it was November, towards the end of last year. And the members include Bill Grubb, Chris Johnson, myself, John McFarland, who's here with us today, as well as Daryl Young here with us, and Chris Montag. And while I'm speaking here on behalf of the group, I do want to make sure everybody's aware that these charts, the information, is a representation of the group. Any and everything that our group did over many, many months. I think we started late November and went through, I think our last meeting was in February or March, probably at least 4 months worth of work. Anything that we created, any one person created, we passed amongst the group. We all gave input. We made sure it was a work, an output of the combined group. And we passed it around until we had everybody's concerns resolved and edited it as a group, in Google Docs, etc. It was all out there for us to review. So I just want to, while I'm speaking on behalf of the group, I just want to make everybody aware that this is really representation of the group. And I'm really proud, honestly, of the work this group did. Just another comment, we had a number of people stop in our meetings throughout the couple months. Greg stopped in, Tracy McQuillan at the time stopped in, a number of folks stopped in, and every single one of them, when they saw what we were doing, the data, the research we were bringing to the table, how we were talking about it, every one of them said, I'm really, really excited and really proud about the work and the research you guys are really putting into it, because there was a lot of work. So just as a quick introduction, we all know what Candlewood Lake is, a long-standing private gated community. With our boating and lake rules and regulations, and from time to time, all rules and regulations need review just to kind of keep up with the world around us. And that's what this group was kind of formed for, to review all of those boating and lake rules and regulations, a complete review across the board. And this is basically a summary. So I believe I've tried to capture most everything. There might be some minor grammatical changes or other things that might not be included in here. But for the most part, this is a representation of the output of the group. So if we move to the next chart, just up front, the goals of the group really, to, as I mentioned, review all the rules and regulations. We weren't focused on any one thing. And we, wanted to recommend any updates, changes, deemed appropriate for the community. Another one of those goals, I think, is a lot of people have found, when you're looking for information on Candlewood Lake, whether, whatever you're looking up, is there's information kind of scattered everywhere. So one of our goals were to eliminate all those different areas and give the community one place to go. If they have a question about boating rules, lake rules, what are the requirements for my boat, what can I do? We wanted to give you one source to go to, and I think really excited about the deliverable on that. So want it to be easy to understand. So that was kind of the goal. Just a quick note, if we go to the next chart on research. I mentioned we did a lot of work here, and I'm not kidding when I say there's hundreds of hours by the team put in, and when you look at all the things we researched, a few examples I put in here, we have a spreadsheet available to anybody wants to see it, of all of the other LLC lakes, their rules and regulations across boating, swimming, towing, all those things. We looked at every single LLC lake, laid it out in a spreadsheet. We took Candlewood Lake membership input, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Third-party articles, we had a lot of input from the community on articles. We had articles that the group researched as well. We reached out to boat dealers to get their input, boat manufacturer specifications, what's on the manufacturer's recommendations and websites. And then, as Greg just kind of covered off, we consulted with both legal, both internal and outside legal as well. So a lot of research and a lot of input went into this, and we're happy to share any of that data. And by the way, as I'm looking at my fellow group members here in the room, if you guys have mics at any time, feel free to chime in as I'm going here throughout. And I'm going to just try to keep this to about 10 minutes so we can get to the town hall portion. So, anyways, a lot of work went into it from the group. If we go to the next page, just to start, so what you're going to see here, really, we had 3 recommendations that came out of the work group, and we kind of had them all in one recommendation to make one motion to the board, if you will. But realizing and understanding, a lot of the input that we got throughout the process, some of them, as Greg mentioned, were hot buttons. So we decided it was best to pull those specific items out of the overall recommendation and address those individually so that they could be, we could look at the facts and data specifically to those items and have motions specifically on those items to give the community, to give the work group, to give the board, everybody the opportunity to address them individually. So that's the background. You're going to see three kind of motions or recommendations. This is the first one, and the first one is really an overall rules update. So when you look at all the work that the group did, we kind of, if you put it all into one big recommendation, this is the big body of work, if you will, that we did. So I'm going to go through what the key changes are in that overall recommendation, right? So the first one, and I'll go through these quickly. We can talk about them if people have questions, when we get to the member town hall section. So the first one, boat inspections. Today, the verbiage just says it's done by security. So we're going to change that to designated persons instead of just security. So if security, can educate designated persons to do those boat inspections, then we'll have more capability to do those at more places and get boats registered faster on the years that we do that. For example, a pontoon boat put in, at any fishing and boating club activities, things like that. If we have a couple more people than just security, we thought that would be good, as long as a designated person that understands the rules and regulations is no more qualified than somebody that we simply say he's security. So as long as we understand that they know, and understand all the rules and regulations and requirements of the boats, then it would be a designated person as well. Go ahead, Daryl.
And I'll say that that's really twofold, right? That doesn't mean that anyone in security, what it also means is it doesn't mean that any security officer is also qualified to do the boats. Because a lot of people have made that mention before where, hey, security person A didn't even look at my boat. It was in the backyard. They just handed me a sticker. Security person B, looked through all of the equipment, the title, everything like that. So the objective here is to provide qualified folks to do the work. And so it's really a twofold objective, and so that's why we made that decision. It's those people that are qualified to do boat inspections, just not anybody in security, for example. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Dale. And if we go to the next page, so that's the first one. The next one is all around the watercraft permit fees. So as I start with that title, that's actually the first change as well. Today you see it's called Candlewood Lake Registrations. Based on recommendations we had from council and ODNR, is we should change that to watercraft permit fee. No change to the fee or anything like that at this time, just simply a name change there, so a little cleanup. State registrations, today it doesn't really clarify today, so today we just made it more clear that state registrations are only required for powered watercraft. Off the top of my head, I believe it just says something like watercraft. So we just wanted to clarify, you don't need state registrations for a paddleboard or for, things of that nature. Required items. So today it lists a number of required items, such as throwables and horn and flotations, things like that. What we did in place of that is simply referred to the ODNR requirements. So that way we're not static, if you will. And if ODNR rules and regulations change of what's required to, members to have on a boat, then our rules change with that as well, because we point to the ODNR rules and regulations. So we just thought that made a little more sense. The registration date, there's no date for registration. So on the biannual years that we have registration, it's kind of like, well, when's security going to start registering, or when is designated persons going to start registering? So to give a little more clarity to that, we said on March 1st of each year is when we will start registrations for the boats. Boating insurance. No real major change here, other than we just, on behalf of Candlewood Lake, wanted to state that we highly encourage, boating insurance and liability. And the liability of boating is the Candlewood Lake member responsibility. And that we highly recommend insurance. So we just updated to include those comments. And today there is no beam width. There's a length, but there's no beam width. So we added a maximum beam width of 8 feet 6 inches. That could keep somebody from adding, who knows, they take their pontoon boat and add some crazy extension off to the side or something like that. that just kind of keeps us all within the same dimensions, not only front to back, but also left to right. Okay, if we go to the next page, let's see. So this is in the Lake General section. And again, all of these are the different sections of the rules and regulations. And again, all of these are kind of the cleanup, the updates that we're recommending as part of the one motion, just again for clarity. So for the Lake General inflatables, today it says that inflatables cannot be any further than 15 feet from your dock. If I've seen many of them out here, sometimes inflatables are 12 feet, 15 feet around themselves, or long, the long, what do you call those, like running mats, if you will, water mats, are longer than 15 feet, some of them. So those are already out of compliance just by the fact of the size that they are. So we just kind of updated that a little bit to say that it must not be installed in a manner that would impede with boating traffic and as close proximity to the member's dock as reasonably possible. So again, trying to keep it close to the dock, but acknowledging that some of these things might be a little longer than 15 feet. So as long as it's not impeding with the boats and you're keeping it as close as reasonably possible, you're okay. A little common sense here. Today there's something specific on parachutes, and with all the things that are coming out these days, we said, you know what, let's extend this beyond just parachutes. So basically we're saying we don't want anybody towing anything behind their boat that flies. So probably don't need to say much else on that one. Sounds fun, but yeah, for safety, we think that's in our best interest. Human-powered watercraft, we just wanted to make sure it was clear that, human-powered watercraft is restricted to operate in the no-wake zones on the weekends and holidays. There's been we've actually had a number of complaints come in, I've seen, and there's a number of times, we have paddle boards kind of in the middle of the day and skiers and tubers flying around, and they're just going straight out to the island or, right across the middle of the lake, and just very dangerous. So we just want to keep them, along within that 50 feet of the shoreline that is the no-wake zone and in the coves, during those high-speed times and areas. On the next page, and that actually I found after the fact is also, I believe, a deed restriction as well. Just as a side note. So on the next page, skiing, wakeboarding, tubing, and kneeboarding. Currently, there's a requirement of how many you can tow behind the boat. The one thing, the kind of caveat to that we realize is we all love our 4th of July here at Candlewood Lake, one of the best days of the year here. And one of the things, except for this year, we like to do is the ski show. But it's kind of hard I imagine, for the people doing the ski show to, pull up 3 or 4 people or do some of the fun things they do for all of us to enjoy on the ski show if they've never tried it before. And we don't want them trying it for the first time in front of everybody. So we did say that there is one caveat to the amount of people that you can pull behind a boat, and that is for ski show practice. However, that must be pre-approved by the general manager, as to ensure it's at a time that makes sense. And done in a safe manner. And then the last kind of portion, if you will, to the overall rules and regulations change is around the close. The Candlewood Lake Ordinance is around the end of Section 15, and it's Section 15.1 through 15.5 and 16. And if you read these, each of them are very specific. A fine on a specific rule. Pick any of the rules, and it's you can read them in there. There's a fine for a specific rule. But the interesting thing is there isn't a fine for every rule. So what we decided to do is we can clean this whole entire area up and use CLO 15 to simply state the fine structure for all lake and boating rules and regulations. And then basically what we did is what you're going to see on the next page when we get there is a deliverable for all the rules and regulations that are numbered in our sequence, 1.1, 1.2, whatever it may be. So the the new CLO 15 points to the fine structure, and then the way security would handle this is, they would use CLO 15 if they decided to issue a fine for somebody breaking a rule, and then they would just put, for breaking rule 3.2 or whatever it may be. So we thought that was much more simple way and consolidated way to bring all the fines together for the rules and regulations. And if we go to the next page, this is a fantastic piece of work here by Daryl Young. Took all of the rules, and I know this is an eye chart, most likely for you guys, because I can't even read it here in full page, so I imagine looking at it on YouTube is going to be a little tougher. But this is basically the output of a single one-page deliverable that will be used and handed to every boat at every registration for every member on the lake as they register a boat, a paddleboard, a canoe, a kayak, whatever it may be. And you can see on there, all the rules and regulations have their, section 2.1, 3.1, whatever it may be. Go ahead, Darryl.
I just want to say one thing in the town hall. I was not the exclusive provider of said document. It was a lot of work, and Alan Thomas, also another member of Candlewood, probably wished to remain unnamed, but he was integral in doing all the formatting of this. And it's actually in a Google document, so it can be shared and updated and published at will, also put on our website. But it is one page front and back, and it does have all of our voting rules. And so Alan put a lot of work into it, as well as I did. So, but we think it's a great resource, both for security and for the membership.
Yeah, thank you both. So anyways, again, while we're showing it as 2 pages, this will be one document, front and back, 1 page. That will be distributed, and then this will obviously be the one that we put up onto the website, et cetera, should this be, adopted, if you will. And again, all of these, this is just a work group. All of these are simply recommendations that we will make to the board, for the board's consideration. Okay, a lot of good work there, a lot of cleanup. So if we go, so that's kind of the main. If you go to the next chart. That's the main group of work. So as I mentioned, we broke 2 other items out that we thought could tell were hot buttons within the community. And a lot of work and research went into this next motion. And I know it's a hot button topic. However, I think if we all kind of stop and take a deep breath and realize what we're talking about here, hopefully we can all come together on the same page. And when we look at this is about boats with wake enhancing devices. The work group is not recommending that we allow excessive wakes. We are not recommending we allow the use of wake enhancing devices. The work group, every single one of us, are all on the same page. We don't want excessive wakes out here. We just don't, for all the reasons that the people, that everybody, that all of us don't want them. What we are recommending, though, is to roll back the clock a couple of, maybe 36 months, a couple of years, to the way Candlewood has always been for the last 45 years. So basically what has happened here with the boats with wake enhancing devices is there was a motion made in 2017 that basically stopped the registration, right? So saying that you can't put a new boat with a wake enhancing device on the lake. And that just happened in 2017. There has always been a rule that you can't use, now correct myself, not always. It's back in 2012, 2000, maybe 2008, I forget the exact. But for a long time, there's been a rule that you can't use wake-enhancing devices, right? Only recently, in 2017, was a rule made that you can't even register a boat if it has it, and we're going to talk more about that. But again, we agree that these devices should not be permitted. So the motion we're making here is a motion to allow the registration of boats with wake-enhancing devices, but not allow the use. If we go to the next page, again, I mentioned a lot of work, a lot of input, a lot of research was taken and done on this topic. This is a list here, and again, this information will be shared so everybody has their, has the capability to look at it and read it. But again, this was, unanimous amongst the work groups, and a number of the data points that we took into account here is the fact that wake-enhancing devices are already prohibited. So you're not allowed to use them on the lake anyways, regardless what type of boat you have, right? We'll talk more about that in a minute. Well, actually now, on number 2, the portability a wake enhancing device is something anybody can buy. You know, this was a big discussion topic of the work group. Is a wake enhancing device is something anybody can buy on Amazon for, you know, $150 and put it in any boat out here. So having a rule that prohibits the registration of a boat with a wake enhancing device, I mean, in concept, any boat could have a wake enhancing device. So that just didn't make a lot of sense to us from that perspective as well. Boat speed, Greg already mentioned it, you know, the size of a wake is really around the manner in which the boat is driven and, you know, a function of the driver most of the time, right? So in general, you know, any of the IO boats, any of the inboard boats, any of, you know, they can all be driven in a manner that makes an excessive wake. And again, as a work group, that's what we felt and feel that we should go after, is that, you know, that behavior. Thank you. Searching for my word there. The fourth thing is choice, right? So with those couple things being said, discriminating against a specific type of boat because it has something manufactured in it versus something that anybody else can go put in their boat, really limits the membership on a number of boats, a lot of boats. Some of the most popular boats that are out today that people like to use for skiing and wakeboarding, it would you know, eliminate all of those from being able to be used here. So choice was a big one. And when we looked at all the other LCA lakes, it was very abnormal. It was not the case in any of them except one. And we'll see more on that on the next page. You know, it's one of the things we talked about a lot, and Bill Grubbs brought to the table, was safety. We wanted to talk a lot about safety, and they are known, you know, boats, the boats, let me say, with wake enhancing devices built in, manufactured in, right, such as inboard boats or V-drive boats, are known as being much safer, as the props don't sit out in the back of the boat, you know, where you can, you know, some skier coming in could hit the prop. They sit 3 feet, the prop is 3 feet up under the boat. They come up on plane much faster. They don't have the bow rise, you can see better. So safety of these boats is just as good. They turn on a dime, things of that nature. The next one is a survey. Next thing we took into account is a survey. And I know there was a lot of discussion around the survey. But this survey, just for clarity, was not meant to be an official vote of the membership. It was not meant, you know, for anything like that. It was simply meant to be a thumb in the wind, to get a feel, right, a feedback. You know, you see the polls on TV of, you know, who's winning the election at this point if there was a vote today, because they take exit polls of people coming out of some building or something like that. That's all this was meant to be, you know, and we sent that out to the entire email distribution group. Anybody that has their email registered at the office received this or could have taken this. So if you didn't get it, you know, again, it was only meant to be a representative of, you know, of a slice of the pie, if you will, that we thought would be representative, and there's more on that in another slide. And then publications. And again, a lot of the publications we looked at, you know, there was a number we reviewed that had specific things around damage to docks and shorelines and things of that nature. Most all of these publications, as we read them in detail, they were talking about boats with wake enhancing devices that were using the wake enhancing devices and making wakes that are literally 4 feet tall. So that was a consideration as well. And that's not the case here at Candlewood because we're not allowing them. So that's a number of the things that kind of led to the motion on the first page. If we go to the next chart, this, I'm not going to spend any time here. I mentioned this already. This is just kind of a representative of other OLCA lakes that we reviewed that were similar in size. They're not all in here. We tried to keep it, you know, some are much bigger than ours that we didn't even bother putting on here. But this is a kind of a slice of what it looks like. Do they allow boats? Hideaway Hills was the only one, which is much smaller than ours. Okay, and if we go to the next chart, again, I mentioned a membership survey that was done. Again, not to be all-inclusive, not meant to be a vote, simply a slice of the representation. And the work group really felt strongly that we wanted to gain membership input. This was the best way that we had to do that, the most all-inclusive distribution list that we had to get that, just to get a slice of the pie, if you will. The board president at the time agreed with doing it. The general manager agreed with doing it. The work group agreed with doing it. And these are the results. We had a great almost 300 people responded, with 54% favoring, 46% against, and that's just the results of that specific one. So with that, those are next page, there's one more. The other motion we separated out just for clarity so that we could have the due diligence and discussion around it is around the boat length. Currently, the boat length and size of the boat is 20 feet 6 inches at Candlewood Lake. Over time, the industry, the boatings, the sizes, things have increased. The work group does not believe making a sizable change of boats would be good for Candlewood. We do not agree with that, given the size of the lake, given as you get much larger in size, wake sizes can increase, things of that nature. What we did find after doing the research and due diligence is, we looked up 11 different manufacturers, 129 different boats, and at some point you got to draw your line in the sand and say, where does the research stop? So after 11 manufacturers, 129 boats, we kind of drew the line and we said, okay, what does this look like if we used all these boats? And all this research is available. Anybody wants to see it, feel free. We can send you the spreadsheet. What we landed on is the smallest increase that you could make, which would be a 6-inch increase, allowed us to move today. Only 29% of the boats in that slice would be permitted on Candlewood Lake. Now, realize there's many more manufacturers than that, many more boats than that, but again, at some point you gotta stop. But the smallest increase you could make, which was 6 inches, would allow us to move in that slice of the pie from 29% to 40% of the boat sample being able to be a option for Candlewood Lake membership. And we thought that was a sizable enough increase for additional choice for the membership at a small enough change that's really not going to make an impact that we felt would impact the lake. So the last motion is really around, just changing it from 20 feet 6 inches to 21 feet. So that is, Daryl, John, feel free to chime in with anything else. Otherwise, that kind of concludes the work that we did as the Boating and Lake Work Group. And I think, we've got a lot of time now we can take questions. And actually, we can start, Greg, if you want, we can start. A number of questions were submitted in advance.
Yeah, Chris, if you want to start with the pre-submitted ones, then we'll get to the ones that are coming in live, and we'll work through those and then keep going.
Sounds great. Good. So first one that came in advance was from Tom Baldozer. A question for the security committee could solar power LED lights be installed on the top of each buoy located in the main part of the lake for night illumination? Experiences navigating the lake at night, the buoys are hidden. I must say I do agree with that, as they are hidden. At night you don't really see them. So it's an interesting idea.
Yep, and Tom, thank you for your question. We actually talked about this at security meeting the other night this week, and I think it's a great idea. And I know there's been a suggestion to go ahead and I believe Tom has purchased one and to try one on a buoy and see how it works. But I think this is a great idea and probably will save us money in the end from boaters accidentally hitting and damaging some of the buoys that are out there. So I think it's a great idea, and we'll be working with between Nate and Doug to give this a shot. So thank you, Tom, for the suggestion.
Good. Our second one, I love that idea. It's a great idea. Second one is from, I'm going to mess your last name up, Carrie Loffery. And she said, thank you for addressing boating issues. Please note from our observations, I'm going to summarize because it's a long one. Basically, concern is around the lack of safety out in the water, and she's noting it's not due solely to new members. Saw a number of horrifying things, in her words: teenage girl driving too fast and flinging her friends off a tube, zigzagging, flying past our dock in no wake areas around Goat Island, and things of that nature. So this cannot be possibly just a new member issue. Every time I hear life flight, I'm worried. She's worried. So lots of concerns here around safety. The problems, as she states, is the lack of enforcement. Like the majority of the issues in the community as a whole: speeding, zoning enforcement, noise, and people have a complete disregard for the rules. So I think the concern is really around safety and what we're doing to improve that.
Yeah, and
I think I can answer that one, Chris. I think it's critical moving forward that we're just consistent in following the rules and regulations that we currently have in place, and that will be addressed in the off season for next year's boating, just from the training and the new security individuals that we're going to bring on board. I think presence out there and being consistent and fair with following all the rules is something that we're definitely going to take very seriously, and we realize that we've missed the mark in doing so, and we will address those issues moving forward. Thank you.
yeah, let me just quickly add, and thank you, Carrie, for your question and your comments. But I do agree, it is not just a new member issue. That's part of it. We do have a lot of new members, but it also involves current members. There's members, and there's family members and children and things like that of members driving boats, and we just have to do a better job of both the training, education, but also being out there and enforcing safety consistently. So thank you for your question. We agree, and that's, you heard Doug talk about it. We're going to be much more focused on that going forward. Thank you.
Good. All right, the next one that came in advance was from Connie Berry, and she says she's been here for over 20 years and love it here, the water and all the aspects of the community. She brought up the idea, there was a brief period where I guess we used a VCR presentation at the office, at the office, which gave all aspects of water and lake safety, and that somehow that we had new boaters have to watch in order to get their sticker. Somehow that faded away. Eventually, an updated DVD or CD was developed, but again, implementation was weak. She thinks something along these lines may be good, as not many, read the books, and it only take a few minutes to have them to watch. So we did talk about this a little bit, and the video, good idea. I think the operationalizing it is the tough part, and making sure that it's not just the new members that follow the rules, but everybody out here. So what I don't think we want is to have every person in here registering a boat have to come to the office and watch a DVD. So what we really decided here, Connie, was that the best thing is the deliverable coming out of the work group, this one pager. It's going to reach everybody, and I agree, not everybody's going and reading the books and reading the handbook and doing all that. But when everybody gets this one page and they drive home from, the security hands it to them in their driveway, you can flip it over in the back. We really hope that helps, everybody with awareness of what the rules and regulations are, and they really, review this. You can put it on your boat, you can keep it in your drawer in your kitchen, wherever you want to keep it. But and the other concern with the DVD or VCR or DVD or video is that could become outdated, things of that nature, and you really just all the things that come along with it. So good idea. We're hoping though that the laminated one pager of all the updated rules and regs will handle that. Okay. All right, number 4 was from Melody Levering. Hi there. Questions are, could we please pull an approved tube with a back support with our pontoon? Could there be designated jet ski times a couple of times a month? North docks need some repair. Is that being addressed? So, the most important thing on Candlewood Lake is safety. The issue regarding really the first 2 questions, both are kind of around safety, pulling tubes with pontoons. The pontoons have a horsepower limit, so they can only go so fast. They are much longer than the other boats, and the turning circumference is wider. These are all topics and things that came up during the work group's discussion, so you all know what we talked about. And for those reasons are the reasons why, the pontoons don't, we don't allow them to pull things. And regarding jet skis, again, safety concern here. The speed of jet skis and the size of our lake and the way those things just kind of, they go every which way. Really, with the size of our lake, just we didn't feel was a good idea to make that recommendation to the board. The last one, the north docks needs some repair. I'm not the one to address that. I don't know, Greg or Doug, if the north docks need some repair. So that's something we can look at. I'm not sure if we have an update on that. Yeah, okay, that's something. We will look at that, the north docks, Melody. Maybe if you have any, the specific issue of what it is with the north docks, if you could shoot an email to Doug, that would be fantastic. Okay. Let's see. Number 5 from Paul Kerner. We have 2 questions. Can we look at limiting the number of boats that anchor together and where they anchor? This activity and the noise it creates is annoying to homeowners. While I know this is a not in my backyard issue, one might think that we designate the cove across from the dam as the only permissible location for anchoring, swimming, and hanging out. And number 2, can we look to limit and monitor the loud music that comes from boats as well as homes? This is community after all. We would love your opinion. We all enjoy peacefulness and family community. So that's a great question, Paul. What we looked at is, Candlewood Lake, unfortunately, due to some of the legal things that Greg talked about up front, does not really have the authority to tell people where they can and can't, or how many boats they can tie up and things of that nature. That's really not within our jurisdiction, I guess is the word I'll use. So we don't have much ability regarding that request. As far as the loud music, absolutely, that is governed by Candlewood Lake CLO 24, which states, in the information handbook, it's covered by disorderly conduct for making unreasonable noise. So if that is absolutely something that security, can handle. So if there's something that's making unreasonably noise or people doing things disorderly, simply call security and tell them the boat and have them flag it down. Good questions. Number 6 is Christy Hickle, and this is a long one. Number of topics here.
You want me to try that one?
Yeah, why don't you take out, Greg?
Yeah, I've kind of worked on this one. And just to be clear, it's not clear it's Christy Hickle, or at the back it says Christy and Terry Walker on the next page. So I'm going to give credit to both of those people, but one of them definitely submitted this question. I will paraphrase on it a little bit because it goes through, first of all, thank you for having a meeting regarding water and boating security. We are lakefront property owners, and this year have been especially difficult as we watch boaters completely disregard Candlewood Lake safety and security measures on the lake. The following are questions, comments regarding lake and boating protocols, and I'll just paraphrase these. But the first one talks about no-wake areas and disregard for the no-wake areas. And on that one, totally agree. I think enforcement is the answer there. We have our no-wake areas clearly marked, and that's clearly something we can address with the right kind of enforcement and presence on the lake, and really no excuse for that. So we'll be on top of that. The second was particularly this year, non-Candlewood boats on the lake and boats with expired or registrations, etc. And again, totally agree with that comment. That's again something that I think is in the enforcement arena, not just on the lake, but also enforcement at our gates, on our roads, and on our ramps. And I think you heard Doug talk about really stepping up those capabilities for next year, and not having those situations occur as they did this year. So the third is pontoon boats anchoring in coves, and I think Chris kind of just addressed that one. And the issue there was the safety concern with boats going by, having enough room, and also people floating on the tubes off those boats. And that's just something we will have to look at that. If a cove is being congested so much that you can't pass by, that is an issue. But other than that, I think some of those things are things that people do enjoy doing. We just have to find the right balance. And the last comment was on water security. and I'll read the first part of it. Security boats should be on the water 100% of the time on Saturdays and Sundays during wake hours and all major boating holidays. And I totally agree that is ideal. That is something that we can take up in the budget. If we do that, it is increased hours. It will be reflected in the budget, but it's absolutely something that can be done. It just has to be paid for. So, but that's something we can put on the agenda. And I will say I totally agree that the hours we've seen this year are not where they need to be. Whether they need to be all wake hours is something we can debate as a community, and I'm fine with that. So thank you to either Christy or to Christy and Terry Walker, and maybe we're talking about the same person there now that I look at it. Anyway, thank you for your comments.
Awesome, thanks, Greg. Next one was from Don Plotz and says, what changes are you proposing for boating at Candlewood Lake? And just replied that he should tune in to this town hall meeting to find out. So hopefully we summarized all those changes well for you, Don. Okay, next one. The next one is this one I didn't quite understand, so we replied and asked for a little more clarity. We need a reliable way to get our boats out of the lake, washed, winterized, and delivered to our property, even if it is off the lake. Didn't quite understand what they were asking for there, so I did reply and ask for some clarity there, and I got a update that we own property at the lake, but only boat there. We need to provide a reliable source to be sure we can have our boats serviced and returned to our homes off lake property. I worry every year how our boat will be removed from the lake and returned to our property in Galleon. We are 74 years old and love the lake, but we need to be sure someone's going to get our boat out and put it in and take it out of the lake, the requirements, and return it to Galleon.
So I'll take that, and I'll actually speak to one of our partners, the Outback on the backside. They're taking signups right now for the boat winterization process, and I believe that's done through Danes Marine. The Outback and Marine used to do a lot of that service. They've since pared that down to automotive. So people have been looking and asking numerous times for boat service and winterization and things like that. So I guess I would ask that you contact the Outback, Philomena's Outback. That's all an outside service, but I believe that's through Danes Marine and or any of the other Marines. I know there's one over at Clear Fork, which I think is Danes, and some others. But that's where I would recommend. Obviously, Candlewood isn't going to provide that service specifically. That's not the association's wheelhouse or purpose. But contact one of those folks if you're listening, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Good, thank you, Dale. Okay, there's only 3 more that were submitted ahead of time, and that is, hello, we come up with a solution for the security tow boats that are broke down. The current boat cannot tow because it is a flat boat. We need to sell this boat. Consult with someone first who knows about security boats and especially towing capability.
Yeah, I'll take that one, and thanks to Deb DePilka for bringing that up. And this one also was a topic at the security meeting this week. And the solution there would be to trade in our current boat. So that's something that we'll have to just get involved in the budget process. And Deb and I did talk about it as to maybe we can start to scope out what might be needed, what we're looking at in terms of trade-in difference and those kind of things. But it is true that our current boat's too light, too low of a back end to effectively tow much of anything. So that's something we can look at.
Thanks,
Go ahead,
Greg.
Chris.
The next one, a couple came in maybe we can nail them all with one response here, is around, I'm in favor of putting any voting changes to a vote of the total members and not just the board. Right.
Yeah, that's from Mary D'Amico, and then also a similar Carol Begeman, and I'll read that one. We feel that no change should be made to the present voting regulations. We also feel any changes should be voted on by Candlewood Lake membership in the 2021 annual membership ballot. Please consider all consequences to our peaceful community. Carol and Gary Begeman. Thank you all for those comments and questions, and I would just say that with respect to all voting changes, it would be a little bit unrealistic to, or quite a bit unrealistic to have members vote on every voting change, and perhaps that's not what was really intended there. But when it comes to the hot button topic of wake enhancing boats and those kind of things, actually the board has the purview to act unless we're talking about a deed restriction change or articles of incorporation or bylaw change. They do, but the board can also decide to kick something to a member vote. So that is a possibility, and I'm not going to speak for the entire board. It's not my job to make those decisions. It's to facilitate, and the board could decide to do it that way or not. But we hear your message loud and clear, and I'm going to make sure we go through all these today. Thank you.
Good. Okay, those were all of the questions that were pre-submitted. So thank you for all of those. Oh, Greg has a couple more that came in.
Yeah, and I'll try to paraphrase these. These are not so much questions, but I promised I would read these. But first is from Jerry Young, Unit 2, Lot 288. And Jerry just wanted me to read this. On April 1st of this year, I was on the lake in my 14-foot tri-hull fishing boat. It's a very stable boat. One other boat came out. We were fishing on the east side of the lake near Michael Court. Suddenly, some very large wake waves came in, nearly washing us up onto the riprap. The waves were washing over the docks as well as on the shore over the riprap. Obviously, these were made by the other boat, which was now out of sight. A while later, we were directly across from the lake fishing near Harmon property when we saw more wake waves approaching. And he used the trolling motor to point the boat into the waves, as his dad taught him as a boy. The first two huge waves we rode out, but the next two washed over the bow. These wakes are very dangerous and cause extra erosion into the lake when they wash up past the riprap. Also, things are actually being washed off people's docks and into the lake. They have no place on our lake. This lake should be safe for all boaters and skiers. So that's just a comment. There's not really a question there, but thank you for that, Jerry. And I would say that, again, back to the excessive wake issue, we do need to address it. And that's something that we need to come together as a community to tamp that down and control it for the very reasons that you mentioned. The other one I mentioned that I want to mention real quick too is from Michelle and Chris Montag, and I'll just read a part of this one. We believe that the board or administration should not be permitted to make such an important decision concerning our lake. We are confident that if the issue is brought up for a member vote, the people pushing for wake enhancing boats will see that the majority of us like our lake the way it is. If the wake enhancing boat issue must proceed, please do everything possible to make it a member vote to allow or not allow wake boats. In addition, please ensure there is a procedure to count those votes that ensures no biases are able to enter. Again, that's a comment, and that's a similar one that we've seen already. And again, thank you to Chris and Michelle for sending that in to us.
Excellent, thank you. And also thanks to Chris for his participation in the work group as well. Definitely appreciate it. Let's see, at this time, that's all of the questions that were pre-submitted. And don't have any, none are submitted at the moment. You don't see any submitted? Okay, maybe I'm not going to refresh or something.
Okay, I'll start here.
Yeah, I don't
we'll start going down them and jump in there if I miss one. But the first one looks like a lot of sound checks and everything, but the first one's from Gary Begeman, and he's talking about, I believe, the insurance comment that was made early on, and he's saying, why is it not mandatory? You said insurance is highly encouraged, and we actually did have a pretty good conversation on that, and because the state does not require that, we felt that was something that we hold off on now and highly encouraged, but frankly, that is a discussion we could reopen. And I will tell you that the Finance Committee actually has had that discussion along with our insurance carrier, and it's obviously something that would be a positive thing, but it's just it's one of those touchy subjects as far as mandating it. Darrell?
And one of the other topics is too the execution of that, the ability for Candlewood to be qualified to determine what is legitimate insurance, and then we also were concerned about people skirting the process. For example, getting a policy for a week, the week that we register our boats, and then canceling. So we thought it was important that we stress that the individual members and the owners of those watercraft are the ones that are liable. And so that's, there again, Candlewood's not the law. We said that in the first slide. And so, we wanted to stress that those individual members are liable. So at the end of the day, that's where the liability lies.
All right, I'll go down the list again. And Michelle Burton, basically, she typed in, agree with Gary Begeman on the boat liability issue, which we just talked about. Nancy Wagner, thank you for typing in a question or comment, and it is as follows. I urge the Board of Trustees to pass a resolution at the September 2020 board meeting that no changes will be made to the present regulations until any proposed changes are put to a member vote. And I think we've kind of already addressed that one. And again, I believe you might be referring to the more hot potato type topics, because I think there's a lot of little small cleanup changes that we absolutely should be able to make without a member vote. But thank you for your comment on that, Nancy. Martha Gassman just weighed in after that. New wakeboard boats on the market are designed so that the hull is the wake enhancing device. This is a good question. There is no way to prevent the wake on these boats. And Chris, do you have any? I think we've talked about that before, versus something portable that could be taken out.
Yeah. So what I would suggest is what creates an excessive wake is displacement of water, right? I believe you can only do so much with the hull. The boat still weighs what it weighs. What really creates the excessive wake, the large wakes that really amplifies them, is weight in the boat. And you see that whether it's with a wake enhancing device. You see that on 4th of July when you have 15 of your family and friends that want to get in your boat with you. Those are the times you see it. So that is what really creates the excessive wake, at least from my point of view. That would be, I guess, my view.
Okay, next, let's see here. Looking down them. Shirley Harrison's commenting. I believe she's commenting on the notion of if it's built into the boat, there's no way to control whether or not the wake enhancing devices are used. And that, I guess that would be correct if it's actually built into the boat. But
yeah. We talked about that a lot, and the fact that there's no way to. Well, I mean, again, it comes back to, Greg, what you've talked about is excessive weight, right? And if we can't, because they're manufactured into a boat, but they can be put into any other boat, kind of what we talked about is it's, to discriminate against a boat that has it built in versus one that somebody just puts it in isn't right either. It all comes back to just the excessive weight. Excessive wake is what kind of the group kept coming back to, and that you talked about, and that's what we really need to, watch out for.
Okay, a typed in note from Paul Kerner. For the sake of safety, the state of Ohio requires motor vehicles to have insurance. Why does the board not consider mandatory insurance at the time of registrations? And again, that's the distinction between motor vehicles and boats. Again, that could be raised. That's something we're willing to look at again, but right now it's strongly encouraged. And it's between. Are we dying?
I think your battery's dying.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a new mic.
Get Greg a new mic here. 1 second.
Okay, is that better? All right, I must have been too long-winded for sure. I ran through a battery. That's shame on me. Bob Meekins has asked a question, how many votes? And I'm not sure what he's referring to. So Bob, if you can come back in, is that maybe the survey votes or something? If you can let us know on that. Ben Parsanowski, is the length and actual measurement or the length listed on the title? Chris, that's probably back to the length question.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion in the work group around that, and it's the length listed on the title currently, and the work group elected not to change that at the moment, because we had talked about, like, you know, given a rope of a specific length, or tape measures, or security actually validating it, and we felt it would be difficult to manage, so we stuck with the length listed on the title. So that is the current method, right, wrong, or indifferent, and the voting work group elected not to change that.
Thank you, Daryl. Next is Zachary Burns. Zachary, thank you for your question. Question is, what punishment happens if a wake enhancement is used? Does anybody know the answer to that one?
I'll pull up CLO 15.
Okay, we're looking.
And then I'll give the fines on it if you want to move to the next question.
Absolutely. Thank you. We've got a great idea from Jethro at 11:30. So I'm not sure which idea. That'd be great to know.
You skipped Shirley, I think.
I did. Okay. Shirley, you're concerned about the length of a boat causing damage, but not the wake devices. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Yeah. So it's not the length of the boat that causes the damage. The length of the boat is directly proportional to the size, well, typically to the size and weight of a boat, which creates the wake. So does the work group feel that we need to dramatically increase the size of a boat that we can put on Candlewood Lake because the industry is continuing to increase? Absolutely not. Did we feel that the smallest increment that we could increase would allow the membership to have a much broader choice, if you will, of boats? We did feel that that small increment of 6 inches would allow. And correct, it is the wake enhancing devices. It is the weight, the displacement that causes the enhancement of devices. So hopefully that helps clarify. You know, with everything, it's, you know, you gotta balance. It's a balancing act. So if we said let's have 25-foot speedboats out here, I would agree 100%. We're talking out of both sides of our mouths. But you know, it's just balancing the facts and the data and the research and making the recommendation that the group felt was best. Thank you for the input.
Okay, and so getting back to the penalties, and for those that need the reference, it's actually CLO 15, so they can pull the board policy off of the website. And I'll read the part that talks about the penalties. The individual may receive a violation citation with a fine of $50 and lose privileges of operating their boat on Candlewood Lake, or a warning will be issued. If a subsequent offense occurs within 12 months of the previous offense or warning, the individual will receive a violation citation and be levied a fine of $100 for a second offense, doubling for each subsequent offense. For 3 or more violations in a 12-month period, the individual will forfeit the Candlewood Lake registration and lose the privilege of operating a boat or watercraft on Candlewood Lake for a period of 12 months from the date of third or subsequent violation, Board Policy 05.049.18. But understand that, make no mistake, and Greg had given mention to it in the beginning as far as our attorneys and also ODNR, if people are creating excessive wakes on the lake and creating damage to shorelines and people's private properties, that is a public civil matter in which Candlewood, you know, is not directly involved in. So it's the boat owner's responsibility. We go back to that, right? It is the boat owner's responsibility for the wakes that their own boats create, and they're responsible for that. So, you know, Candlewood has no bearing as far as the civil penalties that may occur if a private party takes on another private party. So there again, we encourage people, you know, not only through the rules, but you're responsible for the damage that you create. So if you're out on a boat creating huge waves and create damage, you are responsible for that damage, okay? And both from an association standpoint and a private party standpoint. So I would encourage all those people out there that are listening to this, that are creating excessive wakes, if you're doing that and causing damages to people's properties, you could be sued for that and penalized for that. So I would encourage you to be mindful of your wakes and not create damage.
Okay, next up is, and we got a lot more coming in, so we'll get to as many as we can. Nancy Wagner, and I think I'll let Doug answer this one. Can we add more buoys around the lake, especially at entrances to all of the no-wake areas?
I think that's a very good question. Talking with Nate Wilson, our operations manager, for our size of the lake, I think we have as many buoys on our lake than any other lake in Ohio. What we need to do is to make sure they're visible and look at other options. I think with the LED enhancement, that would increase the visibility and so forth, and just the positioning of the buoys in the correct position would be significantly different than what we currently have.
Okay, yeah, and I think the other issue is the placement too. I know I've had suggestions from people that the placement could be better, and I think we need to have more consistent placement and map those out each year, and we've actually got a member that has volunteered to help provide some of that, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, and in addition, the single-page document that the boating work group did, we worked hard. There's actually a map. There's a visual map on that, and I think people are kind of referring to when you get back in the coves, right? People cross buoys and then they don't see any buoys, and they may not be aware that, well, hopefully they are aware, but they may be pleading ignorance as far as being back in the coves, and the map clearly visually shows what is a wake and what is a no-wake area. And so if we continue to stress to folks with the properly trained individuals, there again, giving boat registrations, we hand them that visual and say, look, these are the only areas in which wake are permitted. Do not be creating wakes, which no wakes means no waves, do not be creating wakes outside of these areas. So I think that'll go a long ways.
Okay, next up, Matt Rousset. Thank you, Matt. Can we open up discussion with our members allowing pontoon boats under 20 foot 6 inches to also have unlimited horsepower with being allowed to use a towable? Yeah, go ahead, Daryl.
I'll take that. Yeah. So the survey that the boating work group took actually talked about pontoons with 40 horsepower. And the reason why we did not make a recommendation to remove the 40 horsepower limit is because the people that voted, the close to 300 people that voted, actually voted in the majority to leave the 40 horsepower limit. So the voice of the membership was heard and recognized.
Okay, next comment is from the Jethro 1130. And I think he's referring to, or he or she is referring to the video at registration time. But best idea ever. I had to watch it before I was allowed to obtain my boat sticker 16 years ago. So I think we're all on board with having a more rigorous registration process, whether that's in writing, a video, or what have you. So we agree, and thank you for that. Let's see, Matt Rousset, another question or comment. As a new owner, it was a big negative, and one of the cons of buying here, we ended up selling our pontoon boat with a 90 horse and bought a deck boat with a 140 horse, which makes more wake. It makes no sense. So I guess that's just a comment on that. Ben Parsanowski, another comment. Are any single passenger motorized craft allowed on the lake?
Absolutely. As long as they fit the criteria, the permitted criteria, absolutely. I mean, you could have a small dinghy boat or whatever. There's a lot of choices.
Yeah, every boat has its recommended, I think, passengers. Not every boat, but I think most boats have their recommended passengers, the weight or passengers that it can.
Right. All powered boats registered in Ohio have to have a Coast Guard rated capacity. But it's just the size boat you get.
Okay. Shirley Harrison again. Thank you, Shirley. Is there any consideration of putting unit and lot numbers on the boat trailers? So when you see trailers at the docks, you know they belong there.
That is in the rules. That's listed in the rules.
Already
yes.
Required, yep.
Excellent. That is in the rules. Thank you. Another comment from Jethro 1130, and they are they're the leader in the clubhouse on comments so far, so thank you so much. The comment is simply, no jet skis, exclamation point, and we couldn't agree more. Thank you. Martha Gassman, I urge the Board of Trustees to pass a resolution stating that no changes will be made to present voting regulations and to put it to a membership vote. And this is actually a duplication now that I'm reading it as to something that was submitted prior, and that we've already worked through that one. So thank you, Martha, for resending that. Eric Teskey, the video that Connie Berry mentioned is available on the Candlewood Lake Facebook page. Yep, excellent, thank you. Cheryl Buchanan, I agree with Ms. Gassman on her comment. Bob Meekins, what will stop us from the next board deciding to allow jet skis? An issue as significant as this should require a vote of the membership.
That's an interesting point. You know, jet skis, if you wanted to put that to, you know, any one item that the board, you know, the membership could bring forward to the board through one of the committees, you know, or at the board meeting itself, you know, you could recommend a member vote, and it would go to deed restrictions and things of that nature. And then anything in deed restrictions, you know, the board can't change, or nobody can change for that matter, without a membership vote. So that could be something that you know, I'd encourage you, anything you feel that strongly against, to take to a committee and see if you can gain the support to take to the board. And if not, and you still feel strongly enough, you know, come to a board meeting and present the topic yourself. Yeah, great idea.
Well, and I think too, it aligns with, we mentioned the ODNR special regulations and the Ohio Revised Code. And I think the pursuit of that, Greg said, you know, Greg mentioned it's a long process, but I think the pursuit of that, once we land on these rules, our core rules, I'll call them, that could definitely be added. And then to your point, Bob, it's a much firmer regulation that's also respected by the state of Ohio. So I think to be honest, from my perspective, Bob's asked about the board member's perspective. That's my position, is we should really pursue that, which that boat types are in the Ohio Revised Code for many other regulations.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Daryl. Yeah. Good comment, Bob. Good food for thought as well. Matt Reset responded back regarding the pontoon boats and the question just a minute ago. Turning circumference is not an issue for smaller pontoons. I tubed all the time safely with a 20-foot pontoon. Maybe that's a good point. I just would point to the comment was made that in the survey, quite a bit of people responded, and pretty much soundly defeated the idea of pontoon boats having increased speed or towable capability. And I think some of it comes back to the balance at Candlewood Lake. We are a small lake of our wake zone. Our wake zone is probably 100 acres or less, clearly. So we do have to look at everything, including the wake boat issue, everything together. But that includes, right now, we have somewhat of an order. There's ski boats and there's pontoons, and the pontoon boats go at a different speed. If you have more pontoons that go at a speed similar to the ski boats, in my personal opinion, you add to the danger zone, if you will, on that particular case. But as a member, you have a right to bring up these things, and absolutely, like any member does or any group can do, you have a right to bring that up, and it can be addressed. Let me go down. Joe Reinecke, thank you, Joe. This is a ballot issue and should be voted on by all residents. Okay, and I assume that means Joe's referring to the wake boat issue. And thanks for your comment. Zachary Burns agreed on Joe's comment. Cheryl Buchanan, definitely. Joe and Zachary. Okay, there's just some agreement there. Michelle Montag, no message retracted. Okay, Joe Reinecke, question again, how do you address registration of a boat that has a hull designed to enhance weight? Did we?
We talked about that once already. sorry, I should talk in the microphone. We talked about that once already, but I am going to do the research. Most of the wake enhancing devices are wake plates, are forward drives, fat sacks, ballast, things of that such. There are hulls that favor certain shape wakes by all means, absolutely. But I will say this, the research that I've done, and to directly address this question by Joe, most of the specific hulls actually exceed our length limits. So the wake boats with the hulls that are specifically designed for wakes are usually in the 24-foot and up realm because of the volume needed to displace to produce the wakes. So the research that the boating committee did, and trust me, it was in depth, and Chris wasn't exaggerating, it was hundreds of hours. The hulls that you guys are talking about are usually in excess of, they're more in the 23, 24, 25-foot realm because it's, at the end of the day, it's physics. You gotta have the displacement to produce those wakes, or a plate or something that disturbs the water enough to do that. And so to just have a hull with a boat that produces the weight, you got to have a ballast in addition to it. And the ballast is considered a wake enhancing device. So if you were out on the lake doing that and you're caught with ballast full, and Doug's already expressed, we're going to start really enforcing this stuff. If you're producing big wakes, wakes that exceed the height of your stern, okay, consistently, and you're pulled over and you got a boat full of ballast, that's a violation, period.
Okay, moving on, and thank you all for the continued comments coming in. Shirley Harrison, just an FYI, there are a lot of offenders of the rules at daybreak. So obviously during the no wake hours, and Doug talked about that in his part earlier, that we're going to have a much more robust enforcement capability going forward, and that's high on our list. Before wake hours, after wake hours, and in the no wake zones is controlling the boating the way it's intended. So thank you, Shirley. TJ Reed asked, what about making sure that the docks belong to the person the boats are registered to? Doug's gonna.
I think that is a very significant problem that we need to address in security and actually compliance. And that will be a list that security will have when they go around to make sure that they have the stickers for registration and so forth on their watercraft, that we will check those periodically and make sure those individuals that have those dock memberships are actually in the proper dock. So I think that's vital moving forward.
I guess we're talking about North Dock and South Dock, the rental docks there?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay, Gary Begeman, boating issues of this magnitude should always be voted on by the Candlewood Lake membership. And I think we've addressed that one, that the board could decide to do it that way, or if it's not a deed restriction change or a bylaw change, that the board does have it in their purview. And I think that's really one of the huge purposes of this town hall, is to get everything out on the table and to assess where we are. So Gary, thank you for sharing your comments there. Jethro 1130, what about lowering the lake this year? I need to work on my dock. And Chris Johnson and I just had a little conversation on that, and I know our engineers weighed in on that, right, Doug, about that not being advisable?
Yes, that's a situation that Nate Wilson and I just talked about this week and so forth, with our dam inspection going to be happening next October, so it'll be October of 2021. That is something that the engineers are not thinking is in the best interest of Candlewood at this time. So this year, it's been officially decided that that is not something we're going to do, with the inspection of the dam going to happen in October of 2021.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit to that, Greg, because I've done a lot of research on that, and I think that makes sense. If we have to lower it as part of, do we lower it as part of the dam inspection next year, Doug? Is that?
That will be a process in which we actually will have divers come in and look at the integrity of the dam, and they will make recommendations moving forward. even though we're a little more than a year out, it's a process that we're going through right now with Nate Wilson.
So
and
it's
some
part of
engineers.
this the dam inspection. We don't by default lower
Correct.
it. Okay,
Correct.
so it may or may not happen next year.
Yes.
Okay, so and I've done a lot of work because I've had a number of people ask me about that as well. So just checking across all the other OLCA lakes, 94% of them draw down their lake to allow homeowners to do, inspect their docks, rip, wrap, repair, maintenance, you name it, things of that nature. And of those 94%, there was really 16 out of 17 lakes draw down. 72% of them do it every single year. And then the other 16% do it every other year. So, there was a lot of other reasons. And so we have some work to do to understand why the engineer recommended. I mean, we have the paper, so we know why he said it. And his reasons, we need to do some validation of that because some of us have done some investigation into that and it didn't make sense. But Daryl and I were also talking about that before this meeting, and Daryl had a good idea if we should include that as a survey to see what the membership wants. Would they like to be able to do that occasionally? So we'll look to maybe include that. So if you're not registered with the office with your email, please ensure you register your email with the office so that you receive the surveys, not just this one, but others going out in the future.
Yeah, and I would just add that the main thing with lowering the lake is far and away is we would have to do our extreme due diligence to protect our dam. And so it wouldn't be a willy-nilly type decision. I absolutely know. I would love to be able to get in and clean out things and stack riprap and do all that, but our dam is our number one priority to preserve and protect in terms of the lake. So we would have to do our extreme due diligence on something like that before making that decision, and we would. Bob Meekins, and I'll let somebody from the work group answer this one, but why are these changes so concentrated on power boats only? I don't see any consideration for pontoons, paddle boards, and kayaks, etc.
I guess, Bob, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. It's all boats and all water and swimming, and like the changes, I guess to your point, have a lot to do with power boats. But when we surveyed the membership on topics like pontoons, for example, they elected not to change. Our current rules were adequate. Additionally speaking, we did make the recommendation on the paddle boards and non-powered craft to be in the no wake areas during wake times on weekends and holidays. So I think we have addressed some of those. That's where we're at.
Yeah, and also it's just the number of regulations that are around, pulling skiers and doing others. There's way more regulations around there, so there's more. So that's why it may seem that way as well. When you look at paddle boards and kayaks, there's really not many regulations to be had around them. So,
Martha Gassman just received a comment here. We will never have security on the lake 24 hours a day, and I agree with that comment. And just not practical. And what we're going to have to do is just like road patrol or anything else, we're going to have to look at peak times. We're going to have to look at being random a little bit and look at when the problems occur. But clearly, without a question, there will be and there needs to be more security presence on the lake than what we've seen this year. And I can promise you that that's going to be or is a main priority of Doug and his security staff to make that happen. Okay. T. Callahan, interesting that the survey favored wake enhancing and all the members commenting are against wake boats. I don't know how to answer that one, but just a mix of responders maybe.
Well, we appreciate the opinion. I mean, there's no question. We had 284 survey responses, and there's 60 people watching. So it may be a polarized situation, but make no mistake, the voices are being heard in this town hall. We've got multiple board members here. All board members will get the feedback, and so make no mistake, your voices are being heard. And I think to some of the comments, I think there was one comment from Bob Meekins. What are the take of the other board members? That's obviously going to occur when this goes to the board, when this recommendation goes to the board. You're going to hear those comments at the board meeting.
And Daryl, thank you for doing that. That was my next comment to read was Bob Meekins' comment there. What is the take of the other board members? regarding the vote of members, and I totally agree with what you just said, Daryl. That would be board business, and that will be in the light of day. So that's the way that'll happen. Let's see. John the Trainman. Okay, we got it. Thank you. We believe that large wakes present a danger to other boaters, cause damage to lakefront docks and riprap, and are very dangerous to kayakers and paddleboarders, even if they are in a no-wake zone. And I guess I would say, yep, large wakes can be problematic to riprap, and particularly to small craft and certainly kayaks. And I think we're all in agreement here that we need to address and focus on excessive wake, however it's generated, and work in new ways that we talked about here today, including possibly the special rules program with the ODNR to gain better control of that. So thank you, John, on your comment there. Charlie Michaels, is that next? Hold on. Okay, Charlie Michaels. Damage can also be human damage. A large wake can cause someone on a stationary pontoon to fall. This is another liability, not just for excessive wakes, but also any wake created too close to others. Any comments on that from around the table? Large wake can cause
Yes. I mean,
injury.
Yeah, true, definitely true statements. Large wakes can do that, and as Daryl commented earlier, the wakes that a boat makes are the responsibility of the boat operator.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mary D'Amico, just a quick question. Are hover or fly watercraft allowed? I'm not sure what.
So Chris actually addressed that no airborne, right? Like, so we're opposed to that. We don't think the lake's geography is conducive to that. So especially with all the trees around, the narrow confines and things like that. So we're not looking for anything to be airborne on the lake. Short of a hot air balloon going over and maybe doing a touch every now and then.
Okay, Matt Reset, can we send a survey to all members for 40 horsepower, question mark? I would like to see the sample size in relationship to the entire member population. I think we have that. I don't know how quickly you can get to it, but how many people responded to the pontoon question about 40 horse?
It was, John, do you have the actual survey results?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me get you a microphone.
Okay. You want to know the number or the percent?
I'll give the results of the
Total number of votes and the percent.
Okay, for the pontoon horsepower was for the pontoon horsepower limit to leave as is was 62%, which was 176 people, and to increase was 38%, which was 107.
Total responses then were what? 283, and we've got households in Candlewood, we've got 780, something like that, I think, in total.
Total overall, yes.
Yeah. Okay, hopefully that answers your question.
Well, and make no mistake, those numbers are comparable to the votes that we received back on our annual ballots. So that's kind of where we felt we had pulled at least those that are willing to.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Daryl. Thank you. Matt Reset, comment: a survey like that needs to go to all members. Yep, absolutely. In fact, the online surveys, they go to all members that we have emails for, and that continues to build in numbers and is pretty large presently. It's not 100%, unfortunately. Some people choose not to provide their emails. Bill Menendez. Hi, Bill. How you doing? In some cases, if you rent a watercraft at larger lakes, you're required to watch a safety lake rule video and take a quiz to make certain you were attentive. And
yeah, that's exactly what Connie suggested, and again, we thought about that and we reviewed that, and we just believe that, you know, the videos can become outdated, things of that nature. So we think, you know, the new deliverable we have, the one-pager front back that goes to every single person, not just new person, but every single person that registers their boat, is just where the group kind of landed. We thought the easiest to implement, going to reach the most people, and kind of net it out.
Yep, hopefully that answers that, Bill. Thanks for your question, and hey, hope to see you this afternoon out there. Ben Parsanowski has rephrased a question that I think, Daryl, you handled a minute ago. So the rephrased question is, any craft designed for only one person to be aboard that has a motor for propulsion, is it allowed on the lake? Not sure.
As long as it meets the length requirements and all that, and doesn't have a jet drive, because see, jet drives are what's prohibited, right?
Right.
So as long as it's within the length requirements and doesn't have a jet drive, I'm unaware of any regulations that would prohibit said boat. But the jet drive would be the whole situation.
Okay. Comment from Lauren Corey. Thank you, Lauren. She agreed with Matt in regards to the survey of Candlewood Lake members, and then asked the question, how did you ensure the survey was an accurate representation of all Candlewood Lake members? The sample size directly influences the results. And I think the answer there is it went to all members that we had an email for that have chosen to provide one, so it's up to them to send something back. And actually is quite, if you look at statistics, it's a very statistically valid sampling for the most part, and compared to how they call elections on 1% polling and things like that. So that's how that works.
Well, I would encourage the members too, and we'll work to improve the delivery of these surveys, especially, you know, as far as the email title and things like that. But I would encourage members to encourage other members to participate. I mean, we do all we can to try to get the communication out to the folks. I think the email is a great tool. Additionally, I know Doug is doing a lot of things with the website, so that'll become also another great tool. But we can't force people to submit and return ballots and things like that. And I contend, and people may disagree with me, but the annual ballots, we get limited responses. And so, you know, that's where the concern is if people want to speak up, let's speak up.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl, I can address that. The last survey that we sent out, we had about 365 respond to the culture here at Candlewood, compared to a typically response at the fireworks survey of about 190. So it almost doubled from the initial response. So we are getting a better response from the members. And those members are the ones that we have valid emails in the office to send those surveys to.
Okay. Bob Higgins jumped in and said, my question on board member opinion was on the issue of the vote. I think we knew that.
I don't think your mic's working.
Oh, got it. It needs to be clicked in the on position, apparently. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, Bob Meekins, his question was on board member opinion, is on the issue of a vote on this topic. I think we did realize that, and I think the answer was still correct, that that's something that will be discussed, and it's board business. So I'm not going to air board business at a town hall as a board member here, but I can promise you, Daryl's comment was spot on, that I can assure everyone that we hear the feedback, we're going to record it, and we'll make sure everyone's aware of the amount of feedback and the type of feedback, et cetera, that we got today. Ron Carr asked the question, are we defining an excessive wake as higher than the stern of a boat?
So I was the one that made the statement, and I already talks about it, right? And so that will be one of our future goals, is to objectively define an excessive wake so that there's no questions in judgment. Because person A's definition may be different than person B's. There's no question when you're using a wake enhancing device. I mean, that wake, the shape of it and things like that is especially when you're using one to excess, right? That's without question, but we need to define that overall, because there may be people try to skirt the rules. Let's be honest. If they want to surf on the back of a boat, or do whatever it is they want to do on the back of the boat, and they artificially enhance the wake of a Ranger fishing boat, we need to address that, because it's going to cause damage to people's property. It's also going to, like we've talked about, be dangerous to kayakers and paddleboarders. So that is an improvement. Greg's made a promise and a pledge, and I'm working to follow up on it, that we define it very objectively so that it's very clear to the membership.
Thank you. Paul Kerner is asking, what are the limitations for pontoon boats? And I believe that's 26 feet maximum and 40 horsepower. And there's a beam as well in there, but.
Well, there's a beam now. There was no beam, but there is a beam now.
Right. So thank you for that, Paul. Okay, so Rod Lapp is asking that question. What was the new beam limit again, Chris? The new beam limit being proposed?
That's 8 feet 6 inches.
8 feet 6 inches. Thank you. Okay. Looks like, I'll read this comment. Looks like Ned Lust. Thank you, Ned. This is a flow-through lake by design, and we do not need to lower the lake for dock maintenance. This is not a flood control lake. We cannot lower the lake and ensure the integrity of our dam. So that's a comment from Ned Lust. And again, Ned, thank you for that. And I think we can all assure you that this is something we take very seriously and would do complete due diligence on it. As it stands now, our engineers recommended we don't do it unless it's tied to required maintenance from our ODNR inspection, and then at that time we would be able to provide plenty of notice to our members that it has to be lowered for maintenance reasons. Laura Saunders, hover watercraft are being used on the lake. Are they specifically disallowed? How is this being enforced? And I think we've said, Daryl, that is...
Well, I think it's a further elaboration on that question. I was looking through the rules. I guess if it's got a motor on it, it needs to have a state registration. Candlewood requires that. So the question I would have is, if it's got a motor on it, is it registered by the state? And then we would have to move further. It does get obscure when you get to ODNR regs and things like that, as far as hovercraft and things like that go. So I can't give that a comprehensive answer here. It's something that we could possibly look up and try to give an answer later, but I guess I would have to know whether or not that boat has a state registration, because if it has a motor, a gas-powered motor, and it's not registered with the state, we would not be registering it on Candlewood Lake.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Shirley Harrison, a comment, it would be interesting to know, based upon the number of lot owners, how many actually don't have email or access to the website. I assume they mean access to Wi-Fi. I don't know if I know an answer to that, but...
So I just had a thought, and actually there's one of them next to me right now. He's guilty as charged. He doesn't know it yet. But Laura may be talking about the foil boards and the e-foil boards, and those are permitted, and we don't have any regulations against them, if that is the case. The foil boards aren't actually hovercraft. There is a wing, for lack of a better word, that's in the water, and then there's a very thin post that raises up, and then they're on a board, like a small paddle board, okay? I'm guessing that's maybe what's being talked about here. It gives the appearance, if you're far away, it appears as if this person's floating above the water, but that in fact is not the truth. There's a small electric motor under the water that's propelling them with a wing. Additionally, there can be ones that are unpowered, and you can pump, for lack of a better word. You push it up and down, but you can also pull them from a boat. But there's a piece of that that's inside of the water. It's not literally up in the air.
Comment, we're running down on our time here, but I'm going to get through 2 more comments. And then if there's any closing comments from anyone in the room, we can do that. And I wanted to ask a question. How long will this be out there on YouTube after this? How long can we?
It can stay up as long as you want it.
As long as we want it? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make that comment to everybody that this will be out there for a while to be accessed. Bob Meekins makes the comment, it seems obvious to me that the survey is not viewed by many to be intended to replace a vote. And I agree with that. That was not the intention. I believe we stated that it was just sort of to take the temperature, finger to the wind, to get an indication as to how, a litmus test, if you will, but it would not replace a board action or member vote or anything like that. So we would agree with that comment.
Well, Greg, and I'll say that the voting work group wanted to get the input of the broader membership. And so before we made recommendations, we felt it was prudent to get the input of more than just the small number of folks that were in the voting work group. For example, the 40 horsepower limit, right? The voting work group had, we took a vote and the majority said, let's remove the 40 horsepower limit. When we polled the membership and had 284 members speak to us via a survey, they said, no, we don't want to remove that limit. So we recommended based on the membership's input that we not submit that. And so we wanted to hear what the membership had to say. And that goes along with what we're doing today, right? We wanted to hear what the membership had to say. The membership spoke and the work group listened. That doesn't mean that people can't take action outside of that. It's just that's what the work group decided, is that we wanted to hear what the membership had to say.
And the last comment we have right now is from Charlie Michaels. Charlie says, we had a deck boat and intentionally created as large a wake as possible. Wow, Charlie. So we could unseat grandchildren being towed. I'm kidding, of course. Simply ignorant of damage being done, so education is a necessary element. That's a great point, Charlie. And I think we've all probably done that before. I know I have. Not on Candlewood Lake, I've got a pontoon, but I totally get what you're saying, and you make a great point that is about education, that people can do something and they believe it's part of the fun and all that, but they may not be educated about what it's doing to the shoreline or perhaps surrounding boats and whatnot. So thank you so much for
Greg, there was one I think you missed. It was from Charla Lust, Ned and Charla. Not true about unit and lot number on trailers. It states in our handbook, page 8, it states unit, lot, or state license. And I'll read it on page 8 under boat requirement. It says, boat and utility trailers within Candlewood Lake property must display a state license plate or a 5x8 white metal plate with black lettering with the property owner's unit and lot numbers and letters 3 inches high. I agree with you, Ned, but the license plate also provides the owner's information. So it was a position of the work group that because a lot of people in here may not register their trailers because their trailers may never leave Candlewood Lake, and that's okay. But you still need to be identified. So if there's trailers subject to identification, whether it's back in the maintenance area, whether it's at the boat dock area or whatever, we have a means in which to identify the trailer. And I think that's the most important part, and it's in our rules.
Thank you. We did have one sidebar, and I would ask, Jerry Young sent in a separate text, and we didn't really understand the question. So Jerry, regarding the wake boat issue, if you want to send that to me separately after, we can talk, and I can sit down with you, and we can have another cup of coffee and talk about it. So I'm happy to do that, Jerry. Thank you. And let's see, another one just came in. Deb DePilka, thank you for all the new efforts of the current board and committees to keep our lake community safe, etc. Thank you, Deb. That's awesome. And I can assure you that from all of us in this room, and Doug, our general manager, the security committee, all the people on the boating work group, we share that view. That's what it's all about, is enjoying our lake, enjoying our community, and feeling safe and secure, and being able to enjoy it, but do it in a way that's comfortable. So thank you so much, Deb, for your comment there. Michelle Montag, great meeting. I appreciate all the clarification on issues and attention to everyone's comments. Thank you again, Michelle. It's interesting that in this version versus sometimes in-person ones, we're actually able to handle more questions, and that's an interesting trade-off. I still prefer in-person meetings, but we're actually able to rip through more questions and answers than you typically can when you're live. More coming in. Dave Lewis, thanks for a great informational meeting. You're welcome, Dave. Matt Rossett, I agree with Deb. Very good discussion. Ron Lapp, nice job. Thank you. Bob Meekins, thank you.
I think Bob's in Florida, right?
Bob's in Florida, and he's rubbing it in as we speak. But okay, thank you from Shirley as well. But I think we probably need to wrap up here. And if anyone else has any closing comments, I'll just say a big thank you to all the members that logged in. We will have the data and statistics, and from the questions before, the questions during, and we'll take great stock of this. Speaking for myself, and I know I speak for many others, is how seriously we take our town halls and the feedback that we get and how we process it. We're all about what's best for Candlewood. That's the board's responsibility. We can have different opinions on things, and as I said earlier, it's how we go about that. It's how we go about resolving issues and finding common ground that really defines us as a community. And I've got great confidence in this community because I love it here. And I know we're going to get through all these things. We'll work through them together. And I'll just reiterate myself, if you want time with me, all you got to do is buy me a cup of coffee and I'll show up. And I'll spend as much time with you as necessary to talk through things. And that's my pledge. So anybody else want to make any closing comments at all?
Yeah, this is Chris. I just want to say thank you again to all the work group members, both here in person and not here. I really do feel that they did just a ton of work on behalf of the entire community, and really tried to represent anybody, and fully agree with Greg's comments that, you know, we're just here to ensure safety, but yet ensure that everybody, you know, has access to as many things as possible and as many of the capabilities that Candlewood offers in a safe manner. So thank you, everybody, and I agree this was a fantastic format. I think, Greg, we're all a little concerned not being able to do it in person. We didn't want anybody to feel like their voice couldn't be heard. I think we've done a great job representing that, and all the comments come in here. Lots of thank yous, lots of great meetings. Dave Lewis, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, very nice. So anyways, thank you, everyone, and appreciate the time.
I would just like to take this time to thank everyone for the voting work group. Tremendous amount of work and time and effort put in this project, and thank you to Greg for the great leadership on the board, and just appreciate everyone turning in to today's town hall meeting.
And, one more comment. Pam and Frank Bate just sent in, do I have to wait that long for an answer? Wait, we were pulled over by security. So I would just say submit. It's a question about being pulled over by security. Since it came in, I didn't want to ignore it. I would just say submit that question to Doug as security and everything rolls up to Doug, and he'll get an answer back to you. Thanks again, everyone. Greg?
Hey, and thanks to all the folks in here, all the hard work that went into this, and again, thanks to all of our terrific members for participating, and we'll see you out on the lake soon. And also thanks to Rich Fike, our Director of Technology here. Great job, and we look forward to the next time at our board meeting coming up at the end of September. Thanks to everyone. Have a great afternoon out on the lake. I'll be out there pretending I'm not cold. Thank you.
Hey, Doug, do you see the comment from Pam and Frank Bate?
No.
Okay. I think it deserves a direct address, because they said they got pulled over because they